the Connecticut Beekeepers Association teaching bee yard, and we have a variety of different equipment in here. All right, so these are some of the ways that we deal with swarms during the season. You can see there's a lot of boxes here. There's 2 deeps, but there's a device in the middle that separates them. That's called a double screen. So if you look over here on the side, you can see that the bees enter into that top box through a door that only allows them to go into the top box. And so below it is another separate colony, another swarm that I caught that uses the front entrance. So it's a way to use a double screen. Very convenient way to use a double screen to have 2 boxes on one stand. And this box here is made by a person up in Connecticut, and he roughs the inside of them so that he promotes the bees' use of propolis. So this is an experiment in our yard to put one of those boxes in there and see if the bees will make a lot of propolis. Propolis is good for bees. It's antimicrobial. We normally discourage propolis building. In this box, we're trying to encourage it. Figuring out what I'm doing for bees is to write what I've done on the top of the box. So in this case, this was made from swarm cells. I also treated this with Formic Pro on 528. Record keeping is a must. Find your own way, but you have to make certain that you know the history of your colonies, or else you get lost. Now, this is a really interesting stack of colonies. This is an Australian colony made by a company called Hive IQ, and it is, I'm a proponent of condensing colonies. This one actually comes made as a condensing colony. It's a high-density polystyrene, and this has a brood box and 2 supers. It's 9 frames, so it's a little bit uncustomary for U.S. beekeepers, but you can actually fit 9 frames into the boxes really nicely. And they only make a medium and a deep. So I went ahead and I needed more space in this colony, so I went ahead and made an adapter, this little wooden thing here. This little wooden sleeve allows me to put on traditional Langstroth boxes on top of their hive. Very good winter survival. Beautiful construction. High density polystyrene keeps the bees from eating it, chewing it. So this looks like it's one single box, but actually it has a division in the center of it. You can see some nails that I put in there, and that's a division board which divides that box into 2 separate colonies. It's a standard size Langstroth box, but the bees on this side that are coming in this entrance are prevented from coming over here. And they fly in this entrance only. So it's a 5-frame nuke on this specially made bottom board. If you look on the other side, there's another colony in it. And this colony is a 5-frame nuke from this side. So these are resource colonies. In the event that I need a queen or some brood or something like that in other parts of the yard, I'll come here and I'll harvest out of these boxes. Right? So in this case, this box is doing nothing but hide feeders. If you look inside, you'll see that there's a feeder on this side that has syrup in it, and it's feeding that colony on that side. So the bees can come up here and get syrup from here, and it's still rather full. And they can go back down into that. Now it's still separated because the bees that are up here can't get into this side. So it's still 2 separate colonies. And you can feed them individually. So all this box does is cover that up.
Do you worry about them running out of space?
Yeah, you have to watch them because they will run out of space, and if they run out of space, they'll leave.
Swarm, right?
Yeah, they'll leave. They'll build swarm cells and leave. So this colony is just a standard configuration. A honey going to produce, it already produced a super full of honey. That's all it is a 2-box configuration. Standard, the way we keep bees usually in the Northeast. 2 brood boxes and a super. Could have put more supers on it, but I didn't bother.
You have an excluder on there?
Yeah, there's a queen excluder here, and that keeps the queen laying down in these boxes. And the only thing up here is honey. That's full now, so I'll have to take that off.
That's a problem you want to have.
Yeah, yeah. You can have you can tolerate those kinds of problems. Of course, you have a lot of other problems with the bee yard, and you know that.
Yeah.
All right, so here's an invention that I put together this winter. I managed to take advantage of the fact that there are lots of restaurants during the pandemic that used Lexan panels to separate their dining guests for health purposes. Actually, it was health code at the time. But as that crisis has sort of waned, the material that they used to build these partitions became available, and I got some for free. And I've had this in mind to do for a number of years, and I got around to doing it this year. So this is a totally transparent colony, and it's brought hours of pleasure to the folks in this bee yard as it was building out. It has a clear top, but the big feature is the sides. All right, so it's a total transparent colony, and for teaching bee biology and the building a comb and the behaviors of bees, you know, it's just been fabulous to have. It did swarm, and we were able to see the swarm cells develop and then the colony swarm.
Just starter strips, huh?
Just single starter strips, 1 inch wide, and I didn't put any end bars on the frames I built. So what they've done is they have attached comb. They call this a vertical attachment or burr comb to the sides. So if you can actually film the process of bees going in those cells and working. You can see them just trying to get in there a little bit. But if you spend enough time here, you'll see them put nectar in those cells. It's just beautiful to look at. One of my goals for this colony was to do, I thought, well, it's transparent, so I'll do a lot of infrared photography on it. I have a nice infrared camera, except Lexan
blocks.
It's a reflection for infrared light, so you can't actually you can't actually do it. This colony swarmed today. All right, now this was kind of interesting. This is a single brood box. It was a package. It didn't build strong. So I thought I'll just let it stay in that one box because this yard's only about teaching. So I thought this would be good to show a colony that's just taken its time to build. Well, it swarmed. When I came here this morning, there was a beard of bees all over the front of this box. And then you can see that branch over there that's tilting down, that's still green. They landed on that.
Wow.
All right, so I was here for the gathering of the bivouac, which is, you know, the first stage of them leaving to find a new home. So I cut that down and I thought, okay, let me see if I can find the queen in it. I did. I caged the queen. I came back here with the bivouac and shook it back into the same colony. I've always thought about doing that, never have, so I will see what happens. I caged her, and I cut down all the swarm cells that are in the box. I've seen more than one colony swarm with just one swarm cell capped, which is totally unusual. Usually if a colony is in the reproductive swarm mode, it will build 10 or 15 swarm cells, and maybe even more, and then finally swarm. So I really don't know what's going on this year. This one could have been a congestion situation, I don't know. But it just didn't make much sense. If we were going to open a colony, we would probably open this one to see if the actual manipulation that I made early in the spring worked. So to give you just a little brief history on what's going on here, this would be known as a Demaree, or Demaree, depending on how you want to pronounce it, manipulation. So early in the spring, without showing any signs for swarming, I separated these boxes. These were the two original brood boxes, this one and this one. I took like the queen on the frame I found her on, put her in the center of that bottom box, and then backfilled that bottom box with open, with capped brood, and a lot of open frames. So basically what the bottom box has in it is a minimal amount of brood and a lot of drawn frames. So what occurs then is the colony, you're trying to coax the colony out of the reproductive mode, they're thinking it already swarmed. Now, at the same time, whatever was left, all of the brood, I put up here. So this was chock full of brood that had 2 frames, but that has no field force when you make this manipulation, because the field force flies out of that back door over here, finds its way out into the field. When it comes back into the bottom box. So that way you have a great population of foragers down below to care for this new colony that's going, well, the queen continues to lay eggs down there, and the colony grows down there. And if it all works right, you get a queen up here because they're separated by a queen excluder. They build honey in this box. All right, so this is a deep full of honey. This is one of those double screens, and the colony above is in here, and they've made a new queen, or we think they did. I haven't checked that yet. If it worked, there will be a queen in here and a queen in there, and then you can choose to do what you want with it later on. But you have the same, you've saved the genetics of the colony if you like that, if you like the genetics. You have made a ton of honey. You can put 4 or 5 supers in here. When I was really intent on a lot of honey production, I would always put 3 drawn medium supers above that bottom box right away, because they don't have any brood to care for, and with a big field force, they'll just bring in a lot of nectar and put up a lot of honey. This could be 70 or 80 pounds of honey. Now, it didn't look. This could be a full brood box. That I know is honey. So you can make honey in 2 locations on this box. Right, so this is the principle of, if you can keep your brood and you can keep your bees, you can make a lot of honey. This was the same manipulation, except I did this one with queen cells. So this colony I didn't catch like I did that one. So this colony already was in the swarm mode. In this case, I took all of the frames, same manipulation, left the queen back there, but I picked the original queen, the laying fertile queen, in this box. All right, so then I took all the swarm cells, frames with swarm cells and brood, out of there and put it up here. And then I did the same thing. So down here then I just had the original fertile queen, a little bit of brood, no swarm cells, and then the rest of these frames were drawn comb. Queen excluder, super. Now you could have put 3 or 4 supers on them. Same thing I did over here as I did there. I just put this box on top. So now this one, they should be making a queen up here because they had swarm cells. I didn't check it yet. And the front has always been beautiful. So the front has a lot of foraging activity usually. Today it's a little bit light, but you can see them coming back. They're bringing pollen in. That's a pretty good sign that there's brood in there to feed. So the original queen likely stayed in there. Likely this colony didn't swarm. And if I would have put on 3 supers, I would have gotten a lot of honey out of it. But I'm not doing that. Right? I'm just... Yeah, so this is just a plain old, run-of-the-mill, classic double brood box colony.
2 deeps.
2 deeps, very slow overwintered colony. It overwintered beautifully, but it just didn't build. Now it's starting to build.
Do you insulate for the winter?
Absolutely, yeah. I put nice sleeves over all of these. Langtrus boxes have this little ledge on them, you'll see. Some of them have it on the back too. I have a sleeve that goes over, and all of these tops are insulated already. I run them all year long. Now, I also put this little device in the back over here for using vaporization, oxalic acid vaporization.
Yeah.
So if you take this little plug out, see the bees have already propolized that. That's a metal insert that you use in sort of like cabinetry or furniture making that has a 1/4 20 screw in it, and you insert it into wood, then you can screw something to it. But in here, I put them in here because it protects. This little space right here is below the frames. So I can use my oxalic acid vaporization device and plug it right in there. And if you just drill a hole in here and don't protect it like I am with this little insert, it starts to wobble and wear the wood out, and then it gets really loose and ugly, and eventually you can't use it. So you'll see that little device in almost every one of my colonies. Late February, early March, the only thing coming out of this colony were full-size drones. So I let that happen for a while. The colony ran out of gas because it didn't have any really workers at that point. I let it go for about a month, and then I just shook it out. And it's not a laying worker colony. It was an unfertilized queen. She lost her fertility. And so you can tell it because you can
replace her?
No, I put a swarm in it.
Ah, okay.
Right? And then after that it was perfect. And then the same thing, another swarm on top. I got this one from our friend Armando, and he wanted me to take this swarm and that one.
He's the swarm man.
So here they are. Yeah, so this one is same thing. This colony flying into this door, and a colony on the bottom coming into the front entrance. It's just a conservation of stand real estate.
What's this odd-looking colony in the middle?
All right, that's a top bar hive. Well-intentioned entrepreneurs got together and built what they thought would be a wonderful colony to bring to Africa and help the population of beekeepers in Africa, especially Kenya, to keep bees and harvest honey. But the problem is this shape of this and the wood required to make it is just as expensive and a barrier of entry as a regular Langstroth box would be, because this was supposed to solve the problem of the expensive Langstroth box, except you brought the same problem to them. So I've traveled in Africa pretty extensively, all through the savannah and in the highland area, and with the University of Pennsylvania beekeeping, and they don't use this box. They still use their log hives, right? They can make a log hive for nothing. So that's the bee yard.